Sup flappers, Kazuha is here and he is extremely versatile. Get used to hearing that word because we will be talking about it as we continue in the video. In this build guide, you will get everything you need to make Kazuha work and to draw out as much of his power as possible. So with Kazuha, some of you may be having some questions as to exactly how you should be building him, and the whole confusing part is what exactly does Elemental Mastery do and how it affects not only Kazuha but the rest of your team. Now, with all this said, this video will be covering talent priorities, best weapons, artifacts including main stats and substats, when to use EM and when to use traditional attack and Nemo and crit damage combo. Finally, I will be explaining as to whether Kazuha is a game changer and whether you should pull him or not. With all that said, timestamps are in the description. And for this video, I will not be including his team build because we'll make a separate video for that, and I won't be going over his constellations because I already did a video for that. So if you want to go watch that, you can go to the video linked on screen. Okay, so let's jump into the video. Firstly, I want to say that Kazuha is incredibly satisfying to play with his butter smooth elemental skill. The bulk of Kazuha's damage will be delivered through his elemental skill, with his burst skill working to facilitate reaction damage for the rest of your team. When it comes to Kazuha, it is best to play him in a quick swap team because he's just so efficient at facilitating reactions as well as having low cooldown, high scaling damage combos. Now, people oftentimes get so absorbed into his elemental skill damage that they don't remember it does create a vortex which can pull enemies in. Playing around the short duration of the vortex is important in making Kazuha shine, but we will save team builds, like I said, for another video. Also, do remember that with Kazuha's second passive talent, that every time you do create a swirl reaction, you are essentially buffing the rest of your team, and you should let the other members on your team have a chance to shine as well and take advantage of that buff. So with all that said, let's jump into skill priorities. You definitely want to prioritize his elemental skill if you are under Constellation 6. It's his bread and butter and is also what makes playing him incredibly satisfying. But above all is that his elemental skill has some insane scaling with 417% at skill level 8 with only a 9-second cooldown, making it one of the most spammable and commonly used abilities. Not to mention that the ability also sends you up into the air, allowing you to dodge certain lethal attacks by monsters, so it essentially works as an iframe as well. And also, if you choose to plunge attack down, you activate a vortex which pulls in smaller enemies. There is just too much to the skill to not prioritize it. Followed by this, I would suggest leveling his burst next, as it is used often in setting up team reactions or utilizing the element of your enemies. Finally, Kazuha's auto attack talent is not to be ignored because when you use Kazuha's elemental skill, you do plunge attack very often. But do remember that Kazuha's role on your team is either a quick swap support DPS or quick swap support, and hence why I do not recommend leveling his auto attack second, but rather his burst skill. With a 15-second cooldown and only 60 energy particles, it can have great uptime and effectiveness on the field, ultimately netting you more damage overall to level his burst skill second. Next, moving into the artifacts, essentially playing Kazuha, you have two options, either the 4-piece Viridescent set or the 2-piece Gladiator and 2-piece Viridescent if you are trying to get the most out of Kazuha as a support, DPS, or support. Go with the 4-piece Viridescent. However, if you are dead set on making your C0 Kazuha the main DPS in a quick swap team, you can use the 2-piece Viridescent and 2-piece Gladiator to milk as much damage into his kit as possible. Now, the main stat of your artifact is going to really depend on how you want to play Kazuha. I know the most optimal build for him at Constellation 0 is going to be stacking Elemental Mastery on Sands, Cup, and Headpiece, but I can assure you that most people will not be able to play him properly to utilize this. So to explain this, we have to look at his second talent, Poetics of Fubutsu, where Kazuha will grant damage bonus to all teammates when a swirl reaction occurs, and this scales off of his Elemental Mastery, which means that if you are stacking Elemental Mastery on Kazuha, it's best to switch him out after you create a swirl reaction. Knowing this, if you are someone who prefers to keep Kazuha out on the field and play around him, then building attack percentage on your Sands and Nemo damage on your Cup and crit damage on your Headpiece like a traditional carry will be best. Anyways, regardless of this, the substat priorities will be Elemental Mastery, crit rate, crit damage, and then attack percentage. Energy regen, people might think, well, why don't we get energy regen? It's because Kazuha doesn't actually need a lot of energy regen. The cost of his burst skill is only a measly 60, so it's really easy to actually stack up. And of course, stacking Elemental Mastery on Kazuha is never a bad choice, but just remember to switch him out for a carry to make use of the boost in damage. Now moving into weapons, Kazuha has decent options, both free to play and pay to win options. Starting with the 4 stars, Iron Sting is a great free-to-play option as it offers everything that Kazuha needs, and with Kazuha's elemental skill, you can fully stack this weapon easily. In all honesty, I suggest you try and go for the Iron Sting or the Alley Flash if you, for some reason, have it but not the Iron Sting. Other options which scale off of attack percentage, such as the Flute or the Black Sword, which has a crit rate substat, don't work too well for Kazuha because he simply doesn't scale off of these stats as well. That being said, there are always exceptions to this. For example, the 5-star weapon, Jade Cutter, although is a weapon with crit rate substat, is a great choice for Kazuha due to its high base stats. However, the Skyward Blade is not as good of a pairing simply due to Kazuha not needing that much energy regen like I mentioned earlier, and that other weapons just offers more useful stats. And the Freedom Sworn, which is Kazuha's banner weapon, is of course the best in slot for him, but with the weapon banner you never know, and to be honest, the Iron Sting is so good for its value. Overall, Kazuha's weapon options are fairly linear, I would say, and that I highly suggest the Iron Sting over any other weapons unless you already have the Jade Cutter, which can perform better, or you're a whale who's gonna go for the Freedom Sworn. Now to recap, Kazuha's talent priority should be his elemental skill into his burst skill, then his normal attacks. Artifacts should be 4-piece Viridescent or 2-piece Viridescent, 2-piece Gladiator. Main stat should be all Elemental Mastery if you plan to use him as a support for your team. However, if you want to play him as a main carry, go with attack percentage, Sans, Anemo, damage cup, and crit rate or crit damage headpiece. Substats are Elemental Mastery, crit rate, crit damage, and attack percentage. Finally, for weapons, Freedom Sworn into Jade Cutter into Iron Sting into Alley Flash are the premier options, with weapons such as the Black Sword being good as well if you have it instead of any of the options I mentioned. Remember, Kazuha's role in a team is defined by his playstyle. He himself is incredibly versatile and really is up to you when it comes to how exactly he performs. With that being said, thank you all for watching this video. I will have a Kazuha team video uploaded sometime tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Like and subscribe if this video has helped you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, stay safe and peace.